The microphone squealed as my mother snatched it from the funeral director. Her black dress swayed as she stepped onto the small platform beside the coffin of Don Javier Castillo. I thought she was going to share a memory or shed a few tears. Instead, she looked straight at me sitting in the front row where daughters are supposed to sit and smiled like a serpent ready to strike. Before we say goodbye to Don Javier, she announced, her voice echoing through the crowded room. There is something everyone should know. Elena is not his real daughter. She never was. The collective gasp that swept through the room felt as if all the oxygen had been sucked out at once. I sat frozen, clutching the funeral program with my father's smiling face. My mother had not finished. She stepped down from the platform with surprising grace for a woman who had already drunk 3 glasses of wine before noon. She walked directly to me and handed me a folded paper. The funeral bill, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I opened it with numb fingers. It listed everything: the premium mahogany casket, the flowers, the banquet, all the luxuries she had insisted on, even though my father had died with almost nothing in his accounts. Why me? Because you owe at least that much for pretending to be his daughter all these years. She turned to the crowd, acting as if she were on stage. 26 years of lies. 26 years of another man's bastard eating at our table. My Aunt Carmen was the first to laugh, then my Uncle Mateo, then my cousins, one by one like dominoes falling in a chain of cruelty. The laughter spread through the room. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to make it clear this was not news to some of them. Pay or get out, bastard, she whispered close enough that I could smell the wine on her breath. The real family needs to mourn in peace. I stood up slowly, my legs surprisingly steady. I looked at the coffin where the man who taught me to ride a bicycle, who walked me down the aisle on my wedding day, who held my hand through my divorce, now lay. Then I looked at my mother, at the relatives, still laughing, at those who looked uncomfortable but said nothing. You want me to pay? I asked quietly. Every cent, or I will sue you for fraud for impersonating a family member. That does not even exist. Prove me wrong. I took out my phone, opened my banking app and showed her the screen. I have $8,743 in my checking account. My father knew. He knew I had spent everything on his cancer treatment, the experimental medicines. The insurance would not cover the home nurse. That is not my problem, she said. No, I nodded, putting the phone away. It is not. I walked to the coffin, placed my hand on it one last time. I whispered goodbye to the man who loved me regardless of DNA. Then I headed for the door. Running away like your mother, shouted my mother behind me. I stopped, turned and smiled. No, I am going to make a few calls. Maybe you should ask Aunt Carmen to stop laughing. She is going to need her strength for what is coming. I left them there with their $30,000 coffin and their cheap cruelty. I pulled out my phone as I walked to my car. There were 23 missed calls from my divorce lawyer. He had been trying to reach me all morning, but I had kept my phone on silent for the funeral. Elena, thank God, he said when I called him back. I have been trying to reach you. Did you know your father left you something? What? He had nothing. No, it is not nothing. A safety deposit box. He called me 2 weeks before he passed. He named me as the access person for this specific legacy. Only you can open it. There is also a letter. 1 hour later, I was sitting in the bank vault staring at the contents of box 447. 3 things: a letter, a USB drive, and a thick folder of documents. The letter was dated 1 week before his death. My dearest Elena, if you are reading this, your mother has done what she threatened. I am sorry I could not protect you from this final cruelty, but I can give you the truth. You are my daughter, not by blood perhaps, but by every choice I made for 26 years. When your mother told me she was pregnant with another man's child, I had a choice. I chose you. I chose to be your father. I chose love over biology. But your mother never forgave me for that choice. She wanted me to reject you to punish her mistake. When I did not, when I loved you, instead it poisoned her. The USB contains home security recordings. Every cruelty she committed when she thought I was not watching, every relative who participated, every conversation about the plan for after I was gone. The folder contains DNA proofs, not yours but of others. Your cousin Brittany, daughter of your Uncle Mateo's affair. Carl, the son of Aunt Carmen, is not her husband's. Your brother Alejandro is not mine. Yes, you have a brother. Your mother gave him up for adoption before we met. She has been sending him money. My money for years. Everyone has secrets, Elena. They all laughed at you today, but they do not know that I knew everything. I was dying, but I was not stupid. Use this carefully or not at all, but remember you were the only real family I ever had. With all my love, Dad. I checked my mother's maiden name on her birth certificate. It was not who she claimed to be. My hands trembled as I loaded the USB into my laptop right there in the private bank room. Hours of recordings, my mother destroying my childhood drawings, Aunt Carmen stealing jewelry and blaming me, Uncle Mateo discussing his plan to contest my father's will even though there was nothing to contest. But the last video was from 2 days before my father died. My mother was on the phone believing he was asleep. He is almost gone. 2 more days according to the doctor. Yes, I am going to humiliate her at the funeral. Public DNA announcement. Make her pay for everything. She will be destroyed and we will split his life insurance. What? No, he does not know about the policy. I forged his signature years ago. She had forged a life insurance policy. I pulled out the documents. There it was, a $1 million policy with my mother as beneficiary. And the best part, the number of the insurance company's fraud department circled in my father's shaky handwriting. But there was more, my mother's birth certificate. Her maiden name was not Victoria Williams, it was Victoria Kowalski. She had changed it. A quick search gave me the answer. Victoria Kowalski had been arrested in 1987 for fraud and bigamy. She had been married to 2 men at the same time, collecting money from both. The charges were dropped when she disappeared. My mother, the one who had just called me a bastard in front of everyone, was a convicted bigamist who had lived under a false identity for 35 years. I made my calls. First to the insurance company. They were very interested in the forged signature. Second to the FBI. They were very interested in Victoria Kowalski. Third to a reporter I knew from covering my father's charity work. She was very interested in the security camera footage. Fourth to every spouse of the relatives who were not at the funeral. They were very interested in the DNA revelations. I waited 3 days. I let my mother revel in her victory, posting on social media about protecting the family from fraud. Aunt Carmen, Uncle Mateo and the others shared and commented, laughing publicly. Then I struck. The reporter's article came out first. Woman exposes family secrets at husband's funeral but lives under false identity. The FBI arrived at my mother's house while she was reading the article. Uncle Mateo's wife received Brittany's DNA results at the same time Tony was served divorce papers. Aunt Carmen's husband received the video of her admitting her affair just as he was notified their joint accounts had been frozen. The insurance company not only refused to pay the forged policy but filed charges. But the best part was finding Alejandro, my secret brother. The adoption records were sealed, but the private investigator my father hired had located him anyway. He was 32, a successful architect, and had been searching for his biological family for years. I met him in a cafe 1 week after the funeral. So he said, looking at me with eyes identical to mine. It seems our mother is quite the case. She is all yours if you want her. God no, I replied, but I would like to have a sister if you want. Deal. The funeral home never received payment. It turns out when you are arrested for fraud and identity theft, your assets are frozen. My mother's lawyer advised her to declare bankruptcy. The funeral home had to take the loss, though they recovered the mahogany casket before burial. My father ended up in a simple pine box, which was what he would have preferred anyway. He had always been a simple man. The family completely fell apart. Divorces, arrests, IRS audits. It turned out Uncle Mateo had not been paying taxes. The cousins who had laughed at me were too busy dealing with their parents' disasters to remember my supposed illegitimacy. My mother received 5 years in federal prison. I attended her sentencing. You destroyed everything, she spat at me. I did not respond. My father gave me the tools. I simply used them. By the way, he knew about Alejandro. He knew your real name. He knew about the affairs, the thefts, everything. And yet he stayed not for you but for me, to protect me from you. He was weak but he was good. You never knew the difference. Now she is in prison. Sometimes I visit her, not for her but to update her on my life. My promotion at work, my new home, my growing relationship with Alejandro and his lovely wife, the foundation I started in my father's name with the money raised through crowdfunding after the story went viral. It turns out many people have toxic families and wanted to support someone who fought back. Last week she finally asked, did he really not your father? I took out the DNA test I had done after discovering everything. Yes, he was biologically completely. You lied about the affair. There was no other man. Her face went pale. That is impossible. You wanted to hurt him because he was dying and leaving you. So you invented a lie to hurt me. But you forgot my father was a thorough man. He had me tested when I was born. He always knew I was his. He just wanted to see if you would actually carry out your threat. Then why didn't he stop me? Because he wanted me to know exactly who you were. All of you. He wanted me to be free. I left her there choking on the truth that she had destroyed her own life over a lie she had invented. The funeral bill remains unpaid. The director wrote it off. He told me he felt sorry for my situation and even gave me a small urn with some of my father's ashes. He had saved some when they recovered the casket, thinking I might want them. I scattered them in the lake where my father taught me to fish. Alejandro joined me. We stood there, two children who had been denied knowing each other for decades, finally united by the man who loved one and never met the other. To Dad, said Alejandro, raising a beer. To the only real father either of us ever had. I replied. The wind carried the ashes over the water, and I swear I heard my father's laugh, not the cruel laughter from that funeral, but the warm, deep sound of a man who played the long game and won. They wanted me to pay for everything. In the end, they were the ones who paid. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.